All right, this will be example 3 for section 4.1. So nothing has changed. We are still trying to write everything in the form y equals mx plus b. Now they're just giving us 2 points in order to do this. So the information they're giving us is 2 points. Your first goal is to find m. Whenever they give you 2 points, you're always going to use what's called the slope formula. It's exactly what it says. It's a formula to find slope when you're given 2 points, okay? So what it looks like is if 2 points are given, and we're going to call our 2 points x1, comma y1, and x2, comma y2. Now you could call it x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. All this means is, here's point 1, here is point 2. They always come in x, y pairs. So if they always come in x, y pairs, all x sub 1 means is the x of the first point. Y sub 1, y of the first point. X sub 2, x of the second point. Y sub 2, y of the second point. This is going to be really important down the road for you guys to use other formulas. So make sure the nomenclature, just the wording makes sense. The subscript stands for which point it came from. You get to pick which is point 1, which is point 2. I just always say the first point is point 1, the second point is point 2. That's easy for me. Do it however you want, but it has to be consistent. Whatever point you call the first point, that's the x and y from there. So if you're given 2 points, x1, y1, x2, y2, all you have to do to find m, your slope, or m equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. And this is the first of a lot of formulas you're going to have to know this chapter. But formulas should be easy. Formulas are basically instruction booklets. If you know where the numbers come from, then this is set up for you, okay? So now I'm going to do basically this formula right underneath these 2 points. So point 1, I am going to call the first point, which was -3, comma 5. The second point is going to be right here, and that's going to be 0, comma 1. So let's go through and label everything. We have to find our x1, y1, x2, y2. You probably won't be doing all this extra work later on, but for right now, let's just identify everything. Our x1 is our x of the first point, -3. Our y1 is 5. Our x2 is 0. Our y2 is, excuse me, that should have been a -1. You notice in the problem it's a -1. Okay, so now that we've found all of our values, now all we have to do is plug and solve. So our slope equals y2 -1 minus 5 divided by 0 minus -3. Please be cognizant that this net minus comes from the formula. This negative comes from the value -3, okay? After you have everything plugged in, this is pretty simple math. Just make sure you separate numerator and denominator. -1 minus 5 is -6. 0 minus -3, then becomes 0 plus 3, which is a +3. -6 divided by 3 is a -2. So my slope equals -2. All of that was simply to do step 1. Now the second step. The second step is always find B. But I told you guys in the beginning of today, all section 4.1, they always give you the y-intercept. You have to be able to find it. So find B. If they give you 2 points and you're lucky enough to be able to be told the y-intercept, you'll know it because the x is 0. So when you look at the point 0, -1, this is the y-intercept point because x is 0. So my y-intercept or my b's value is -1. If x is 0, that is your y-intercept. And we're done. Now this looks exactly like what we did in the beginning. We just have to plug into y equals mx plus b. So it becomes y equals -2x plus -1. But you don't want to leave it looking like that. You don't have a plus minus next to each other. So you're going to write your final answer as y equals -2x minus 1. Okay? So hopefully this makes pretty much sense. This is your first introduction to the formal slope formula. So you've been doing something like this when we've been doing it in table form. You're saying, what did my x go up by? What did my y go up by? We were looking for a consistent rate of change. Now we're finding the number that represents that consistent rate of change. And all you ever have to do is follow your slope formula. So if you're given 2 points, first find slope, label your points, point 1, point 2, plug them in, solve for slope. And then everything in 4.1, they will give you the intercept. The intercept is the point where x is 0. Okay? So now let's look on to the next one. Always, always, always rewrite your formulas. So our first step, for example, 3b, find slope. We are given the 2 points, 0, -5, 8, -5. So we have our x1, y1, x2, y2. The slope formula, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So now we're just going to plug and go, and I'll write these underneath them just to make it a little bit easier. So this is x1, y1. This is x2, y2. Okay. So now we're just plugging in. y2, -5 minus -5, y1, over 8 minus 0. Now we've got everything plugged in. Let's solve. -5 minus -5. Anything minus itself is 0. Over 8 minus 0 is 8. In the numerator, 0 is fine. 0 divided by anything is just 0. So now we have our slope, which is fine. 0 is a fine number. It's a number. Make sure you give it respect. This can be your slope. Now we found our slope, m equals 0. Now the second part, find b. Well, I told you guys in this, the b is always going to be at the y-intercept. If x is 0, we have the y-intercept. This is the point we're looking at, and it'll tell me b equals -5. And again, I know that because the x coordinate is 0. So now I have my m and my b. Sorry, that was from the last problem. Now all I have to do is go and plug in. So I'm going to do this over here. I don't need this anymore. So y equals mx plus b. Y equals 0x plus -5. So notice how I just substitute everything in. Now I'm going to go back and work on it. So y equals 0 times x is 0. 0 plus a -5 is -5. Y equals -5. Which is fine. And it should have made sense because when we had a slope of 0, hoy bucks, we know we have a horizontal line. And look, we will have a horizontal line at -5. This all fits all of our previous definitions and everything we knew coming up into this section. So that concludes examples A and B, or A and